Well, welcome, Dave. Another week of figuring it out. This time, Sans Ron Schlecht, who usually joins us. I'm Matt Wilson. We bring Dave Menichello, who heads up our CISO Advisory practice here at BTB Security. And the topic this week is talking to your board. It's something that I think we're seeing information security leaders be challenged to do even more often. And there's probably a bit of a mystique about it. There's folks that are maybe been doing it for years but want to get better at it. There's folks that just kind of want to know what all those secretive boardroom discussions actually are. So I figured who better to bring into this conversation is a guy like Dave who does this on a regular basis. So I don't know, Dave, what's it looking like for talking to the board? Are they just a whole bunch of grumpy people in a big conference room, or what happens?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's kind of an interesting dynamic because the boards know cyber is a problem. Probably not quite sure how big the problem is or how persistent it is. They know they need to ask questions. In fact, if you're a public company, boards are required to be kind of looking after cyber risk and have folks with some expertise on the board that can ask those questions. The information security side is still coming into their own as it relates to what to report, what level. So there's kind of this dance that's going on with, we know we all need to be talking about it. We're not sure exactly how to get to it, but the good thing is the conversation is happening, and it's just going to evolve and continue to hopefully get better.
So if you're tasked with, or maybe your boss is tasked with, right? Because we have a bunch of different roles that contribute to how that board dialogue happens, because you might be a leader that's called into the boardroom. You also might be a leader or a component as part of a security team that has to help your boss prep for those board meetings. What does that look like? Is the board just passing down their words every quarter and you have to figure it out? Like, what's the mechanic? I'm kind of intentionally asking dumb questions here, but I think that'll get us to helping folks understand how they can prep for this stuff.
Yeah, I think the right approach is, you should own the story if you're communicating up to the board. Understanding the board's role is oversight. It's not necessarily the decision making. It's they're there to make sure that the people that they've put in place in leadership positions, security being one of those, is being looked after diligently with quality. There's follow through, and we're looking after the company's best interests from a material respect. I think if you're a security leader, you want to go into that those sessions with a good story to tell, and a goal in mind. Part of your job is probably some bit of education of the board, but the initial thing is definitely to make sure that you establish credibility with the board by understanding the business really well, the business strategy, the value creation, first and foremost, so you're not just there talking about security bits and bytes or gaps and things like that. Don't start at that level. Demonstrate the ability to articulate the business strategy, value creation, and then start aligning the security recommendations or the efforts that you've launched your teams into, aligned up with those strategy components.
Yeah, I think that's really key, right? You have to have some kind of relationship with the board, and whether it's chummy or professional or whatever context it takes. I think that's what we see a lot of InfoSec folks struggle with, is because we're nerds. Well, at least I'll say, I won't call you Dave, but I'm a nerd at my core, right? So I want to bring facts and figures, and that all might matter ultimately, but if you can't connect it to how the business operates, what good is that going to serve them? Their eyes are going to gloss over, and we all know that, but we still see it happen.
Yeah, we love our stats. We love the detail. I like to say, work in the micro, but report in the macro, and that absolutely has to prevail in the board setting. If you have 10 slides, strip it down to 1.5, maybe 2 at most. You've got to simplify it. Now, it is important to not cut out detail and only focus on one dimension of the security talk track that you're on for that given quarter, it's really important to come to them with, a broad view, start them out high level, but then bring them into, what it is that you want to focus on. And the other one I would, backstop that with is, don't just report the negative. What are the findings?
Yeah.
What are the gaps? What are the problems? It's really important to talk about what's working, what's, could use some improvement, but honestly, we can live with it, and then steer them into the things that we need attention. That shows them that you've got your whole, field of view in mind. You're considering it, and you start talking about trade-offs, or, we can live with that. You bring perspective to the equation, and you build that trust, and you're more apt to get support for the things that you really do need their attention and backing on, instead of just bringing those sole 1, 2, or 3 things to them.
Yeah, you can't just bring a mess of stats and throw it at their feet and expect them to interpret it, right? You have to tell them, you have to tell a story. That's what I consistently hear from our clients is, help me tell a story. So if you, Dave, had to coach someone up for their first board meeting, besides those kind of obvious things that not obvious things, but the things we've kind of covered, what are you telling them to prepare to do? Like, are there metrics? What does that look like? What are the things that are kind of key for that maybe one slide and less than 5 minutes of time? What are the things they can do that you would coach them to do better?
I mean, I think the goal would be that they leave the meeting with a very clear and accurate picture of where the company stands with regards to information security and exposures. And that it's not always a glowing story, but they need to know, the facts and where things stand. I would focus on certainly reporting on results, for initiatives that you've done, and not just activities. And definitely any initiatives or any work that your team has done, you have to link that back up with what the business value is or the business benefit is. It's not just security activities that are happening and leave them wondering, how does that help us, or, what does it mean for the business?
Yeah, the line I always used to say, and this works in a couple ways, whether you're talking to super technical folks or leadership, is give credit where credit's due, right? Like if you're doing the thing, whatever it is, capture that. So if you're doing vulnerability scanning, I'm just kind of thinking a very specific example. It's easy to report to the board 10,000 vulnerabilities, but what's the trend is, now you won't have that maybe in your first meeting unless you have a history of data, right? But you can go over the trend and what controls you put in over time and how that might have influenced. And maybe it's not 100%, right? It's not, we were at 10,000, we did A, B, and C, and then we went to 5,000. It might be, hey, there was an influence because of A, B, and C. Who cares what the weight assignment is? We're seeing value out of what we're getting.
Indeed.
Or what we're spending.
Yeah. So certainly keep your talk tracks to things that are material to the business. I also think it's helpful if it's one of your first times through and presenting to them, to help educate them on the background of the program, what the function is meant to do. I think it is helpful if you can explain that you do align to some sort of a framework that can bring some credence to the program, and know that what you're doing is not just arbitrary, but it is aligned with something that's generally accepted and industry accepted. It doesn't mean you have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but just a nod to we generally align to this, so we know we've covered our bases, and there's some credence to the program that we've built is helpful.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing boards be a bit more educated, right? Sometimes because of the composition, right? If you have someone that's from an IT organization or technology services or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have to be technology, but I think we're seeing them ask better questions and to kind of expect that. So giving them the history of the program, why you've made some of those choices, you got that maybe 5-minute window. You got to watch how much history you're giving them, but connecting it to the business and why it's important, I think they care about pretty deeply.
100%. And if you can demonstrate the ability to prioritize, it goes a long way for them being comfortable that you're connected with what's going on with the business. You have the ability to focus in on what's important, consider it all, but make some decisions. and again, line it up with what the business strategy is, so they know that you're on the the inner track with regards to the management team. You're adjusting as business priorities change in the right way, and you're not going down a track that's completely divorced with where the business is headed.
Well, I think we covered it. Maybe we didn't figure everything out this week, Dave. We never do. I think that's what Ron and I seem to be coming back to. But I thank you for joining us. Hopefully, folks can take this and be a bit more armed and prepared for their next board meetings that will maybe be over Zoom. So get your slides ready, folks.
No kidding. That's right.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. Have a great rest of the day.
You too, Matt.